We will call the meeting of the Newburyport Affordable Housing Trust to order. It is 6:04 p.m. Thursday, April 2nd. My name is Andrew Shapiro, Drew Shapiro. I'm the co-chair along with Madeline Dash. We don't do roll call really, but we have Paul Carter, Barb Coleman, thank you, and Caitlin Sullivan here helping us. We'll start with public comment. Anybody who wants to offer a general public comment, either who's on Zoom or anybody in the room. Anybody? Going once, going twice. Okay. 5 Parker Street project consultation. You want to introduce yourself and let us know about this project.
Are you gonna pull up a plan or something?
Want to start with the site plan?
Yeah, that's. So Lisa, me telling the cost of 33rd Street in the report, and I represent Ed Hill, who's the trustee of the Parker 5 Realty Trust. So this is coming down Parker Street. It's right at the edge of the Smart Growth Overlay District, outside of it, but it's the last lot essentially of Park Street. It's where Richard was storing all the equipment and everything across from Ed's other development across the street. So the condos that are across the street. So you pass Kenny's projects, he has 2 current, if you're going down Park Street on the right-hand side, there's 2 multifamily buildings, and then there's this parking lot, and that's where these are proposed to be. So they're proposed to have 12 units. So we have 2 quads and 2 threes. They're all 3-bedroom units. And so we would have 2 affordable units, they would be in the quads. We have affordable units across the way as well as, of course. I think if you talk to Jennifer, I don't know if Caitlin knows this too, but they were really great units. Jennifer was pretty impressed when she went in the units. They're the same finishes that everything else is. So, so that's essentially what it is. There's a garage, so there's a single car parking in the garage, and then sufficient room for 2 parking spaces outside the garage as well. There's gonna be a crosswalk into, is this the new one we sent? Yeah, it's gonna be a crosswalk into across the street to the rail trail. That's proposed to have a flashing RFR signal at it. Not that you guys, you care, but.
It's not jurisdictional laws, but it's good information.
Yeah, so, and then there'll be an opening into the rail trail over there. There are no sidewalks on this side of Parker Street, but obviously there'll be a sidewalk in front of the units. And I think that's about it. Obviously, they'll all be electric now. We were just talking about that because of building code, because they're all more than 3 units. They all meet the commercial stretch energy code requirements. This is what the development is proposed to look like. We have to go to in next week, 2 weeks. We're in front of the zoning board for the multifamily use special permit. And if we get the multifamily use special permit, we go to the planning board for a major site plan review. We also have to go to the Conservation Commission for an order of conditions. I will say the fire department is pretty happy with it because it takes care of helping to get some more access to that rear where that fire was in the back. And they're pretty happy about that. And we're working, we've worked with them and then the owners of Dunkin' Donuts who kind of let that stuff go. So that's where we are, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
How many units did you say it was?
12.
Because I'm counting 14.
Oh, no, 14.
Okay, just want to
sorry,
confirm that I
no,
wasn't
14.
that they weren't
Yeah,
considered a certain
no,
way.
14.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I should have looked at my notes.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
It says
Just wanna confirm
14
for
right
the
there.
record. That's great.
And they'll all be ownership.
Ownership. Yeah, they're not rental, they're ownership. Condos, just like you did across there.
And have you plotted within here where the affordable units are going to be located?
He said in the quads, so I can imagine they're one of the 2 center units in the quads.
Okay.
Which is, I think, trying to remember where the location of them were in the across the street. So we had more units over there.
Mhm.
And, I think he had, so there's actually a little street, there's like a little, you go up and you do the turnaround, but then there's a little jog off of it. So we had one over there and two, I think two in the back, so. They're in the quads, they're nice units, they're all nice units.
So just to be clear, the affordable units, you're not sure where they're gonna be located,
They're gonna be in the quads,
within the quads, which is not the 3-unit building.
that's correct.
Okay, just-
They're in the
yeah.
the two 4-unit buildings, you see
Right,
them side by
right,
side
right.
there, right?
And, I assume they'll be interior.
Right, that's,
rather than
yeah, they're gonna be
on the
one of,
side.
I'm sure they're,
Middle.
Ed didn't tell me, but I'm
Middle.
sure it's gonna be the middle units,
Right.
one of the two middle of each one of those.
Okay, so there won't be 2 affordable units within 1 quad.
Oh, no,
Okay, just
No.
wanted to make sure.
he's spread them out.
And the interior, will they, have the same amenities, finishes and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
So they have very nice, finishes, and usually Ed and Joe do the finishes and don't let people pick the finishes, and so they do them all the same. There are some upgrades that some people do pay for, but if you could talk to Jennifer, she was pretty impressed when she went into his units across the way. He's gonna do them the same, because he just gets all the same stuff for everybody. But, you know, he's not gonna upgrade them like somebody would pay to upgrade them, but the base is very nice. I guess I would say it that way.
Do you have the sketches of the floor plans? Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, put the floor plans up.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
I've seen many of the ones across the street and many of the buyers who got involved before they were built.
yeah,
You know, the upgrades that they would do would be maybe different light fixtures and they pay more for that. Different tiles in the showers, just fancier tiles, finishes like that. But I assume like cabinetry would be the
it's
same.
all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And
all
then
the
there's a
same.
flooring, maybe the choice of flooring.
Yeah, so I think he has, my recollection is mostly hardwood throughout, and there may be a bedroom or two that was carpeted, but I don't recall that exactly. But I think that's pretty much what he uses on the floors. Yeah, so these are
Hard to see, but.
horrible
you can see that
hard
they're like-
floor plans, but,
All units are the same.
all
square
units,
footage.
all same square footage, all 3-bedroom. All have the same parking garage.
My recollection is there was quite a bit of demand for the other.
Yeah, if he would have built them faster, they would have sold faster. He
Hmm.
just is a very
Right,
methodical
right.
builder, and it took him a few, well, it also happened during
COVID.
COVID, right? So there was that, but most of his stuff was gone before it was completed, and it was gone.
And because the affordable units will be in the quads, there's no reason to think that they'd be built last.
No, so the thing about that is that building all gets built together. Right? So that 4-unit building is gonna get built together, and that he does, and I will say this. He does them by building, right? And as soon as he can finish that area, this is gonna be a little bit different. Can you go back to the floor plan, to the site plan? It was easier across the street because he worked his way back and then he did that little arm that was off there and then he worked all his way back, right? So you could finish the driveways and the road and people could get in, right? And so this is a little bit different because it's like this loop, right? So I don't know how he's gonna plan to schedule this. But here's my guess. My guess is for sales sake, he's gonna do one of these, and he's either gonna do triplex or the quad first out front. I don't think he would do the one in the back first because you can't see it, right? So I think for sales, he would probably do one of those two out front. And then probably start sales on those, but you have to have safe access to them, so that, I don't know how he would work that out. He definitely will not build it all and then sell it. He'll do it by building. And we did the lottery by building. We didn't do the lottery. He didn't wait until the end to do the lottery. He did the lottery by building.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Do you have any figure of what they got to be selling for?
Why don't you ask Bob?
What's the square footage? Probably comparable to what's on Hines Way. I would
Yeah,
guess.
so there's a resale over there right now listed at $8.99, I think.
Probably, yeah.
That was on resale.
My question is, when they're under construction, a typical buyer can go through a purchase transaction
Right.
before they're built. For the affordable housing units, would those be available for them to bid on only when they're ready and finished and able to be walked through? Is that how that works? Or
How do we
while it's under construction?
I think I don't know, I think. I think they have to be done. Before the lottery happens.
Yeah.
I think they have to be done and have an occupancy permit because they need to get financing.
Right.
You can't get financing without an occupancy. And so, and they can't sign a PNS without, because the qualifications, right? So that, yeah, they would do the lottery and then.
So it would be finished first before an end user could
Correct,
go in the lottery.
yeah. And I think those rules are UHSU's rules for the lottery, they're not,
Well, it's better because then
Yeah.
it's more of a sure thing.
right,
And their income is current, you know.
Right.
when they move in
And it's not a delayed.
right, it doesn't, I think we had one, and sometimes there's an issue with the financing and qualification, so I think. Not every lottery winner ends up getting a unit because they end up not being able to get financing, but that's where the trust in the city comes in, because you might then help them with their down payment assistance or something like that. So, but that is all work that you all do together when the buyer is the lottery person is chosen. You know, it's, yeah, I mean. This isn't you and it's not the city, the state's gotta do something about changing the regs, the 80% is, it's a lot of money. Even 80% AMI, the purchase price is a lot of
Well,
money.
I'm glad it's 80, not 100.
Yeah, well, right. Attainable unit, so you're looking at. I think that the current, you haven't done any for sales recently, right? I think I did a for sale in Salisbury. Last year, the end of last year, which had a purchase price of $327 for an affordable 2-bedroom. Condo. It's a lot. And well, and here's the thing. The interest rates are higher, so the purchase price is gonna be lower. Cause that's how they get adjusted by UHLC. So as the interest rates go higher, your purchase price goes lower. Which is actually, for the builder, a really bad thing. Right?
When do you think the affordable units would be ready? Like what year would that happen?
Well, assuming we get our permits, I think right now, you know, we're in front of the ZBA April 14th. I'm gonna try to then, right after that, hopefully there's a deadline, I think 2 days later for the planning board, so we'll be in the May. Meeting for the planning board's gonna take at least 2 meetings, I would imagine, if not more, but it'll take 2. The problem here is gonna be the Conservation Commission, this is a really tight site. And it's all wet and there were problems in the back that the guy from across the street never dealt with originally when he got that permitted, so. We're gonna have some problems with the Conservation Commission, it's not gonna be easy, so I don't see us having full permits for this site. Until the middle of the summer, don't tell Ed that, just because I think the conservation is gonna be tough. I think, you know, we might have the other permits by June, but I would be surprised if we had. The conservation permits before July.
How resistant do you think they'll be?
Pardon me?
Based on the flooding they've had back there. Remember, we had that big storm a few years ago. and
Yeah,
All that area was all underwater.
that parking lot was
That whole lot was, yeah,
not up on the street.
up to the street. Yeah, it was
The parking lot was underwater. Yeah, I don't,
Yeah, that was the way back when.
yeah.
But that was when we had the big rainstorms and the little river
Yeah.
flooded. It was flooded.
Oh, yeah, way on.
Industrial park, and it was,
Right.
it was flooded out there.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, they have to meet stormwater requirements.
Right.
And, I don't do that. I'm not a wetland
Sure,
scientist
that's okay.
and I'm not an engineer. So what I'm worried about is, I don't know if you can see it, but there's this right here. This area has to be, this goes into this wetlands right here, this
Right.
resource area. So there is I think we're gonna have to ask for a variance from the Conservation Commission for that, or a replication. So it's not gonna be easy. He's got Mark West on it.
Yeah.
And his engineer, so I don't know the answer to that, but let's assume it's a July permitting time period. You know, Ed's pretty good with his financing, and so I would imagine he's gonna get rocking and rolling by the fall. He probably wants to get one of those foundations in by the fall so that he can get something closed up and work on it over the winter. That's my guess.
Would the Conservation Commission do something simple, like just say elevated?
No, that would be nice, but I don't think that'll work. They gotta have there's gotta be, I don't know the answer. I think we're gonna have to have a public benefit related to getting a variance because of that little lip right there.
Yeah.
Yep. And we've gone as close to the street as we can.
Right.
We use the front yard setback exception, with the existing structures.
Sure.
And so that's how we got to the front yard where we are, plus it also is a nicer streetscape, you know,
Right.
but that helped us get that.
When that lot was created, did they own it back then?
No,
No, okay, 'cause
that Shepherd's across the street, right? Ed bought it,
Shepherd filled it all.
end of last year. Shepherd built, but that was all, he got Conservation Commission approval to do that.
That's okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't see why you couldn't build it up another 2 feet.
That's over my pay grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Howard Snyder did the landscaping on this. I think the landscaping is, gonna be really nice. There's gonna be nice row of trees along that area. You can see there's plantings all along the front. There's gonna be the little fences with the granite posts along the front of the units. I think it'll be a nice complement to the one across the street.
So first of all, any other questions from commission members here on this? So we're required to do a letter of support to the ZBA for the project that would go to the ZBA. Okay.
Yep.
Yep, so, and you're meeting on the 14th?
Yes,
Do you need the letter in hand on the 14th? Do you need to be able to, the ZBA need to review that?
yes,
See that?
ZBA
Okay.
would need it before the 14th.
Got it. So, typically on an agenda, it'd be good to have like the fact that we're having a vote.
Right.
Yeah. I'll overlook that at the moment, just because we're in a little bit of a. You know, we have to accommodate the schedule here, so, do you want to, you'll be able to draft something, Caitlin, that we can review?
Sure.
Okay, so, and then, so Madeline and I can review it, so I would motion that, we approve, sending a letter of support for the 5 Parker Street project to the ZBA. Subject to review and approval by myself and Madeline, on a drafted version of the letter. Sorry for the long.
Second.
Right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's 4-0.
I have a quick question for the attorney. Do you also need a letter to the board also?
Well, we'll just use the same letter.
Okay, that's what's up here.
Yeah.
Support, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good
luck.
Good project.
Yeah, it'd be good, nice to finish that whole little
Yeah.
area there.
Yeah.
this is really great. And 2 more affordable home ownership units.
All right, now we have a review of a demo delay, proposed demo delay, ordinance change, as well as findings for special permits and non-conformities. I can see we have 2 members of the city council here. Thank you for being with us. Feel free to introduce yourselves and your proposed ordinance changes.
So I'm Stephanie Nekitich, Ward Two Counselor.
And I'm Lisa Medina Smith, Ward Five City Councilor.
I'm going to ask Counselor Medina Smith if she has a preference of which we start with, because I know you're trying to get.
Yeah, why don't we start at 2:18? I have to leave for the AU info session.
No problem.
Okay, so 218 is really quite simple. It's to get some case law language into the zoning ordinance under the findings section for special permits for nonconformities. And it basically mirrors what the Supreme Judicial Court decided in a case called Bjorkland. And that was that Gloucester? Chatham, okay. And the other case law that was used in doing this was Britain, and that was Gloucester, okay. And Britain versus Gloucester resulted in a court decision that aesthetics, it is fine for land use special permit granting authorities to consider aesthetics when they make a decision in their findings. So that's all it is. It's based on established case law. It supports what we have in our 2017 master plan about making sure that we are supporting affordability. So it is it's the Bjorkland is considered the anti-mansionization ruling, and Britain is the aesthetics ruling. We have an attorney here, who'll be able to explain that better than I did.
Right.
I'd love to have public comment after this.
Right. I'm sorry.
Is this right? Is this what the one party wanted to show?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the gist of it. Now, we did have a planning development committee meeting. One about this. It's going on April 15th. There will be a joint hearing with the planning board. But at that, before and at that meeting, we did have some public comment that we're already in the process of making some amendments to this. And one was from Mr. Tainter, who thought this would be he thought it would be valuable as part of the purposes of zoning. And so we are putting it there too, in language that he proposed, so it will become purposes in zoning, and it will also be here where it's needed, and we checked the city solicitor on this. It's really needed in this section of the ordinance, because if there's ever an appeal of a decision, that's what the courts will look at, what the board is supposed to find when it makes that decision. So that's this section.
I think the only thing else I would add in terms of the other amendment we're also working on is around defining what aesthetics means in terms of the context of what neighborhood character or like massing. So it's got the list.
Right, so we did add, I'm trying to see where
Just
right. To make clear that aesthetics are about the things that land use boards already look at and or already in the language of these ordinances, and that's size, scale, massing, footprint,
and neighborhood character.
and neighborhood character. And one thing we considered often, things like fenestration, window placement is looked at. And we talked about putting that word in, and it's probably not necessary to do that. They already do it, and there's wording. If you scroll down a little bit, so that I can see what's up here. Okay. So may consider among other relevant factors. So we're really stating a lot of this again. But other relevant factors is discretionary and it's appealable, but the ZBA has made decisions based on window placement. So it's sort of included.
We can agree to disagree.
So the other thing that we are still discussing, there have been people who want to know, because starter home is used it's used without definition by the Supreme Judicial Court, so we put it in there because it's basically restating their decision. But a lot of people said, well, what is a starter home? So right now, we're looking at an amendment to the definition section of zoning to define starter home. And the only way I can think of to do that is to take the state's current definition based on 40Y. And that is a very clear, no more than 1,850 square feet. It only
Can
applies
you say that
to
again? How many?
1,850. They use it only for single family homes. This would apply to multifamily homes. So I'm not sure how useful it is, and I'm not sure if that's really what Newburyport wants to. We don't have to accept 40Y. So I'm not sure why we would put it into our definitions until maybe there's a bigger conversation about that. So we're talking about it, but we are talking about it because that is a question that keeps coming up. What is a starter home?
There's definitely a lot of houses in Newburyport that are smaller than that.
I
I
know,
think mine is right around that, you know, and we put an addition on it. It was like 1,200 when we bought it. Family of 4 was living there, you know.
there are a lot of condominium units, expensive ones, that are less than 1,000 square feet. So we're still working with each other and about whether or not that would be an amendment. But again, plenty of time, because this needs to go to a joint hearing with the planning board. So maybe other people will have other ideas about that, but we're trying to keep it simple. This is very simple. This is, you know, it supports the city, you know, it's city policy that we support housing diversity.
Do you know how many other communities in Massachusetts have something similar? I sort of remember hearing about the city of Newton. I mean, and I think, well, I don't really know exactly what they had, but I remember reading about it and I think it was pretty controversial, but.
I really don't. I mean, we were hoping that this will not be controversial because we're not changing the law. We're simply putting the law into the ordinance for clarity, for the boards, for the public, for the applicants, that this is, you know, this is part of special permit granting authority's discretion. It's been upheld by the state Supreme Court, so. I think, you know, and I think Caitlin provided a link on your agenda to, I guess it's the planning board. And that link includes the comments we got from both Rick Tainter and from Jared Eigerman. And just reading their comment is very interesting.
Anybody else? I see Lisa has it.
Yeah, I would entertain hearing what Lisa has to say.
Okay.
Could you pull that back up, Caitlin? So here's my comment on what's here. So we need to back up because the difference between the Yorkland case and the Britain case versus what our ordinance says and what that is proposed to say is very important. And I think what that's trying to accomplish is counter to what the ordinance says, and more changes would need to happen. So our ordinance, if you recall, says that the only by right dwelling that you can build is a single family home. That's it, right? Everything else is by special permit. So 2 family homes and 3 family or more are all by special permit. What that is saying is that the zoning board should favor 2 family and multifamily homes over conversion to single families. And the problem with that is that the zoning ordinance, as well as 48 section 6, says that you are to move from non-conforming to conforming. And almost all of the two-family homes and multifamily homes in Newburyport are non-conforming. Because the special permit requirement came into effect in 2004, 2001 with Nick Craig, right? So it actually is counter to 48 section 6 and our non-conforming section, because it's telling the zoning board not to make something less non-conforming, which is what the law says, but to favor things that are non-conforming. So if I have a non-conforming two-family house on a lot that does not meet the dimensional requirements for a two-family home, and I say, I want to turn it into a single-family home, which is gonna make it more conforming, because why? Single-family homes are allowed by right. And my lot area requirements are gonna be more conforming for a single-family home than they are for a two-family home. And so while I understand the intent here, this is counter to what the zoning ordinance requires the zoning board to do and what 40A requires. And that is to encourage people to become more conforming and to get rid of the non-conformities. So if in fact this is what you want to do, you need to make two-family homes by right. Because this is saying, we want you to keep non-conformities going. And that if you're proposing a single-family home that is not only more conforming, it's by right. And more conforming from dimensional requirements, the zoning board can't do it. Under the law.
Very interesting.
That's interesting. I mean, I agree principally, like, you know, the idea of making two-family by right makes sense to me, because effectively, we're already trending that direction with the ability to have ADUs on single-family home properties in every single-family home district. So not to say that that's equivalent to a traditional two-family where you could have like a duplex or something like that, but you know, the idea of there being two dwelling units on a property is like normalized at this point.
In 2000 and whenever it changed, two-family homes were allowed by right.
Yeah.
We used to allow two-family homes by right. We actually used to allow multifamily homes by right, if you had the appropriate area, lot area. But that's multifamily is a whole other thing, but we don't allow two-family homes by right. I mean, it's all really counter. I mean, the whole thing, when the city council changed the zoning districts a few years ago and got rid of, basically only have multifamily in the very downtown where you really can't build it anymore, right?
Right.
And everything else got moved away and special permit. You took away the ability to create, frankly, affordable two-family homes and encourage affordable two-family homes. And you can't tell the zoning board to go counter to what the zoning ordinance says by use and dimension. If somebody's coming in making something more conforming, which is actually by right.
Well, and the other thing I'll quickly mention, which is it's more rooted in my own observations. It's not like I don't have proof of this per se, but I mean, my sense would be another issue that we're contending with on the Affordable Housing Trust is the loss of rental units.
Yeah.
And I feel as though two-family properties tend to more often be utilized as rental properties. So you have someone who say occupies one side of a two-family, eventually they outgrow that, but they hold on to that property and they use it as a rental income. Or someone purchases an entire two-family property, they live on one side and they rent the other side out. So it's a kind of another way of creating more rental property. It's not managed rental property like what you see at Minko built in the 40R district, but it's, properties that are rented and it could theoretically increase the housing stock of rental units as well. So
Yeah, I get that this is a criteria, but the criteria runs counter to the non-conforming requirements of both the ordinance as well as 48 section 6. And so if you want to encourage two families to stay two families, allow them to be by right. I mean, I have developers who go from two families to one families because they don't have to deal with the zoning board. Because it's by right and they can make it work on the lot. And if they modify the two family, they got to go to the zoning. So I get that, I encourage and support the idea of increasing 2 families and 3 families. This is not the way to do it. It's completely counter to the ordinance and to the statute.
Well, I will do 2 things. One, openly, our advisor on this ordinance has been Jared Iderman. So I will bring what you're saying to him and see what his response is. We're also already considering an amendment to that paragraph, not based on that comment, but based on other comments, which I think eliminates that language. It's actually just more, almost verbatim, the Bjorkland decision language.
Yeah, because that's not in York.
No,
No,
no. So, so if we do that, then we sort of get rid of this conundrum.
yeah,
But I'm
because
interested in.
it's not in Yorkland because it's counter to 48 section 6.
Right, so, but that's, I mean, that's interesting. I would like to talk to Attorney Igerman
Yeah,
about it, yeah. So that's,
Yeah.
it's really.
It seems like it will make it potentially, unfortunately, more controversial. Cause,
to leave it in.
well, to try to pass something that involves 2 family by right.
Oh, yeah,
Throughout the
no,
city.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah,
It definitely would.
yeah, no, those are 2 separate issues, but that was my point. My
Right.
point is that if what you're attempting to do by adding that language, which is not in Yorkland, right?
Right.
By adding that language, you're attempting to convince people or encourage people to keep 2 families. So then just do it,
Yeah.
because you can't do it that way. Because 2 families are allowed by special permit, they're not allowed by.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So once we are trying, the sponsors of this, by the way, are me, Lisa, and Sarah Hall. So we are trying to get whatever amendments we're going to propose based on public comment. To the committee and the council of the whole, before Tuesday's committee meeting. There's a planning and development committee meeting on Tuesday. So we're trying to get it to them tomorrow so that people have a chance to look at it before we go to the planning board. So what I will do, as soon as that goes out to the council, I will also send it to you, or maybe Caitlin, but.
I have a question for you, the 2 of you. What was Agerman's objective in writing that?
To really to clarify for applicants and the public and other board members, including board members in the future, that this is, that this, ignoring the 2 family thing for now, that the planning board and the ZBA have the discretion to make decisions based on things like aesthetics and housing diversity. That's within their discretionary authority.
But according to our comments from the floor, this directly competes with that. I mean, it just, doesn't that?
Yeah, I think she said, but for that last, in
Exactly.
response to you, she said, but for that last sentence.
So the alternate language we're considering right now doesn't have this. It is really verbatim. The Supreme Court's decision,
Okay,
the language of it.
So you might, just as an aside, you might not want to sell it as being from Portland, if people are gonna read that. As opposed to, oh, you're actually gonna set, that is actually the language from York.
Okay,
Right.
so sounds like we have a good argument for using our new language.
Yeah.
But, so I'm not sure if you go to many ZBA or planning board meetings, but, often, especially when you have new members and members who aren't lawyers, we fortunately right now have a ZBA that has plenty of lawyers on it.
Or unfortunately.
Who tend to be quite shy about what their discretionary power is. So we have seen a lot of mansionization in Newburyport. that might have been prevented. And the first time I ever heard Yorkland come up was on a case that's still before the ZBA. It's on Bromfield Street.
Oh, 9 Bromfield Street.
Right. And it is one of these nice, 2.5-story workers' homes that they're trying to basically turn into a 3-story building. And when it first came to the ZBA, I was there for something else, but I heard them discuss that, and Yorkland had explained to the developer, or the applicant, that Yorkland allows them to say no to this simply because it is
Massing was too big, so
too big.
the Bjorkland case was a case where there was a, well-established neighborhood. And there was a small cottage-ish house on a lot. This is down in Chatham. And they had, and to be clear, it's a very fact-specific case, but it applies in a lot of areas, but it is very fact-specific. So they had an open space requirement, dimensional requirements and all of that. And the applicant met those requirements. And there was a special permit for nonconformities because I think of the size of the lot, I'm not really sure right now. And the house was quite large that was being proposed, and the neighbors were not happy about it. And so the court said that the board had the right to not design the house, certainly, but to say that its scale and massing were not appropriate for the neighborhood because they had all of these other dimensional requirements that they could also play with. And so because the zoning ordinance included the appropriate language, they were allowed to exercise it.
So it has to be codified in the zoning text.
No, the text is not, I think that Stephanie's point is, and perhaps Jared Eigerman's point, who's a member of the ZBA, is that it will be easier for the board members if they have it in the ordinance so they can be comfortable to rely on it, as opposed to the language which exists today that says scale, massing, blank, a couple of other things among others, right?
Yeah.
And so the question always is, what is among others? And this is the debate that the lawyers have back and forth. What is among others? Is it fenestrations or is it another garage, right? What does that mean when the primary language is scale, massing, size, right?
They cracked down today, ordinance on Plum Island, in the Newburyport part, about the increasing the size of the buildings up there. But that's only Plum Island, right?
No, so Nick didn't do that. The Plum Island zoning was adopted when we took water and sewer out to Plum Island. I was mayor at the time. We hired Mark Bobrowski.
Right.
We had to did the same zoning pursuant to our consent order with DEP, with Newbury and Newburyport. And they had to have the same zoning. And the same zoning had to reflect that there's an FAR requirement out there. And the reason there's an FAR requirement is not because people didn't want to see big houses. The reason was that they did not want to have houses that had the potential to have more bedrooms than what could be allowed to have in your Title V system. And the reason is that there's a 1971 executive order from Governor King that says you're not allowed to spend state or federal money on a barrier beach that encourages development. And so the restrictions on Plum Island are solely tied to the administrative consent order that we entered into with DEP and limited that development out there. Yeah.
It's 25% increase in size.
25%, not increase. Total is 25%. And you can by special permit go around that.
Yeah.
But that's the total.
There's some mighty big houses out there.
Yeah, but the bigger houses, so first of all, they seem like they're bigger because they're up, right? But the bigger houses are on lots, so every lot out there is 4,900, every plot of land is 4,900 square feet. That's how Plum Island was laid out by the Plum Island Beach Company in 1923. And what has happened is people have gotten more than one lot. So the smaller houses are on the 4,900 square foot lot. And 4,900 square feet is 25% is what, 1,200 square feet or something like that, 1,000 square feet, something, smaller homes. But if you buy another lot, then it's 25% of the full area. So some of the larger lots, there are 4 and 5 and 6 lots together, and that's how they get but they can still only have no more than 3 bedrooms. You can have one more bedroom than you have, but you can never have more than 3.
So, does any of this, impact like new construction? Like, I'm just thinking about what was just approved by the planning board in my backyard, which, are gonna be 4 very large houses, out of scale with the neighborhood. And the developer was unwilling to show the footprint or the massing and, you know, they could potentially be, I don't know how many square feet.
So those are by
Very,
right?
very large.
So that the problem, so
It's
those
a
are,
lane
this is
thing.
for non-conforming.
Only.
Yeah, this is only for
Yeah,
non-conforming.
I was just sort of wondering if there's any thought about, I guess it's really
There is.
infill housing.
There's a proposal.
There's another zoning amendment coming through. It's newer than these two, and it will also be discussed first by the committee on Tuesday, but it will be at the planning board joint hearing, and it is a proposal to introduce a FAR of 25 to the R2, the R3, and the B3, which is most of, the R2 is most of Newburyport. So you're in an R2, there are Highlands in an R2, it would have an impact on that. So if you take the lot size and just multiply it by 0.25, you would know,
It's still large, it's still large houses are fairly large lots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so they're those are 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 square feet lots?
Well, they're actually, I think they range from 10,000 to 16.
Yeah, so 0.25%
Yeah.
of 10,000 is still 2,500. Right.
2,500 square feet. So, I mean, I'm not a sponsor of that. I sort of have different thoughts about doing this neighborhood or, having overlay districts depending on where in Newburyport it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of this, in like 2019, we have those plates that Courtney Starling did. Which I pulled out again to have this discussion. I don't think you should do something like that citywide. It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense
At all. There's also, it includes, and I think this is going to get, the most pushback, a 25-foot height limit. So I just think there are better ways to do this, area by area of the city, considering our historical development patterns, which is really, they're quite different from neighborhood to neighborhood. But I guess the main point is that this is something that is trying to save neighborhood scale, neighborhood character, housing diversity, is something that's very much on the minds of councilors. Because we know, we're losing, we're losing our diverse housing.
So who's introducing the other?
So that is Counselor Mary DeLye and Counselor Beth Trock.
Yeah, so I do, and I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment that, we probably need something that addresses by right structures with FAR limits. That's something that I would be supportive of generally. To the issue of the 25-foot height limit, maybe not, but and looking at maybe, lot coverage surface limits. So things like, capping a percentage of a lot that can be covered by pavement, for instance.
Right, well, this ordinance doesn't propose to change any of that currently in zoning.
Yeah, not that, I mean, I think. If you're gonna do the height limit and the 25% FAR, it just doesn't. Every single, we already have so many non-conforming structures. You're gonna lay that across the, from Marlborough Street over to, Kent Street, really? That's silly. Should it be maybe looked at up, between Mosley and Ferry and that and Story? Maybe. Should it be looked at maybe off of Turkey Hill and Longfellow, where we still have some affordable housing, right? In the R1, maybe it should be looked at out there, and then you kind of keep that scale of housing. But it really shouldn't be city. It's silly.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
It's silly in Ward 2, I can tell you that.
I definitely don't endorse it citywide, I think, but yeah, I think on a selective level.
Yeah.
In some areas that are probably more prone to, or have more of the stock of modestly sized
Yeah.
homes that are threatened by mansionization.
If you wanna see a classic case of how not to do it, I used to live in Lexington, go to Lexington.
Yeah.
And look at what they did down there. They just destroyed that whole community by building these, 6, 7, 8,000, 9,000 square foot homes, whole subdivisions. Yeah. 2,100 square foot.
Yeah,
homes.
well, one of my concerns is I'm not sure, and I've been trying to, I've been focusing on the impact on Ward 2, because it's my ward, but also looking at some of the other areas like around the hospital. And there are still lots. There's a huge lot on Rawson Avenue with a very lovely, modestly sized home. Which could be, torn down by right, and what could be put in its place with this far is a 6,000 square foot home.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't know how that's protecting, anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other, since we're just having this chat.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I mean, I think and I talked to Mary and Lisa about this before. I think if you wanna encourage people to keep smaller homes and or encourage two-family homes, right? You take that whole area I just talked about, that's the area avenue, that whole area, and you do an overlay on it and you say, okay, if you build, you can tear this house down and build a new one by right, or two-family by right, if each unit doesn't exceed X square feet. And you say square feet, not not an FAR, right? And so that encourages like smaller builders or new home buyers that want to put an addition on their home or something. If they don't have to go to the boards, which is expensive, then it encourages them to keep the homes smaller but improve them, which is not a bad thing. You don't want your housing stock not improved, and or put two families in, right?
Yeah.
Because I know a bunch of, smaller builders that if they don't have to go get a permit and they can just do a small home that's a reasonable price, they'll do it in a heartbeat. Or even first time homeowners, right?
Yeah.
But you have to encourage people to do that. There's, you can use a carrot or a stick. You let somebody do something by right within your limits that you draft. It's a whole different machination. And I've done that in a bunch of communities and it works. So, but I think we gotta think outside the box instead of people like limit. Okay, well, what do we want? And what are we gonna let people do without making them go get permits and result in the homes that we want? So that's my mantra.
Yeah, I think that, we have a way to go, but I'm glad that this is what people are thinking about.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Just to find the right way to do it. Which brings me to demo delay. So this has, Caitlin or I can send it to you. I thought it would have been posted by now on the meeting
Thanks, Lisa.
page for Tuesday's meeting. That has been, first to let you know, it's been drastically changed from what we proposed, which is what I sent you in the first place. And I'll explain why. So what we proposed was that we change the age limit from 75 years for a primary structure to 50, and that would have started capturing a lot of our modest post-war homes. And we counted 788 that would have been now covered by demo delay. And most of them are in wards 5 and 6. So I know that this is something the Historical Commission really wanted to do. I think it's something that the Affordable Housing Trust wanted to do, because I know that when these small houses come up, you know, I've heard trust members, you know, say, why are we losing these natural starter homes? And because it's mostly now in those 2 wards, and I know that those ward counselors are very interested in housing diversity and saving these modest neighborhoods. We sort of teamed up. So the sponsors were me, Mary DeLye, Lisa Medina Smith, and Sarah Hall. The other thing that we wanted to change, based on really the Historical Commission and anyone who has experience with demo delay and its effectiveness, was to change the delay period from 12 months to 36 months. Because the 12 months is not a deterrent for someone who wants to tear down a building. It's basically the time it takes to design and permit your project. So it really has not worked well over the years. And so those were our 2 big proposals, and pretty major. And the first public meeting we had in committee, I wrote it down because it was, as you would expect, there were 11 people there to support it, including 3 sitting members of the Historical Commission. I had kind of hoped maybe someone from the Affordable Housing Trust would have been there to support it. Because anytime you do something like this, and in most zoning changes, what you do get is a big blowback from the realtor and development community. Anything that changes inventory in terms of turnover or makes it more difficult to sell houses, et cetera. And I'm sure you've had experience with this, that it just happens every time.
Did you hear that blowback as of yet?
At that meeting,
Yeah.
if they were there, they sound like monsters. They're a legitimate part of our community, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, the builders and realtors, Layla Wright was there. Couple and some builders were there, and they just, they hated it. I thought we could survive that because we have sometimes before, not always. If residents, if the rest of the community is for something, you have that debate, and then you might still get the changes you're looking for. But 2 of the sponsors, Lisa Benita Smith and Mary DeLye, had decided that they thought there was actually there was more they wanted to do, and so they proposed a last minute, like that day, amendment to this, which threw everything up into the air, because it wasn't our building demolition ordinance, and the people who adjudicated this Historical Commission simply aren't, it's not meant to do some of the things they wanted to do. It introduced the word starter homes, it introduced affordability, it introduced a lot of things that really demo delay doesn't, or demolition delay doesn't address. So it would have been a very major change. We would have needed actually a new board, the Historical Commission. That's not what they do. So it just became very confusing at this meeting that was already kind of contentious with the historical people and the builders and the realtors. And the next morning, Lisa and Mary, they withdrew their proposed amendment. They also withdrew as co-sponsors of the original proposal. So, so Sarah Hall and I, said, okay, if we don't have the Ward 5 and 6 counselor behind this, there's, you know, there's no point in trying to go to 50 years. Because without the ward counselor's support, when that's mostly where these houses are, it would not make a lot of sense. And we, you know, we did hear enough, including from one of the counselors on that committee, to think that we were never going to get our 36 months. So the ordinance is now changed in 3 ways. One is we have removed, you know, any change in the age of buildings covered. It's still 75 years. All I want to remind everyone of is that is a moving, that's a moving date. So in you know, by next year, we'll be covering homes built in 1953. You know, and I would just rather give up on the debate, because what does come up whenever you try to change that is, let's fix the year. Only, you know, just only buildings that are, you know, from 1920, I've heard of that one. You know, it's like, no, I'll take the 75 years at this point rather than fooling around with a fixed date. So we've gone with the 24 months, which I think will be a much better deterrent than 12 months. I think we can, you know, we can save more buildings, especially the ones which are getting old, the smaller houses. And the third thing we did was a result of in that meeting, it became clear, if you know, if you're in that world, if you've gone to historical commission meetings about demo delay, if you know, it doesn't seem strange to you, but it's strange to just about everyone. What is it? How does it work? It's a very, as written, the ordinance was very complicated. It was so complicated that often the historical commission members didn't understand how to deal with it. So we sat down with the planning office, with Caitlin and Jennifer Blanchette and Andy, and it's been completely simplified. So the procedures are simplified. Madeline, you'll be glad to know that now the public hearing begins at the very beginning. So there's no sort of, well, we don't have public comment until after this point. It's a public hearing. It is a process that really is more two-step now than, so if something comes to them, it's already been determined that it's historically significant. So they don't have to determine that anymore. They just determine, should it be considered for preservation? So that's the first thing they do. And before that, there can be public comment. And then they can ask if they decide that it can be considered for preservation, they ask the applicant to go ahead and tell them what the plan is. You know, what are you going to change? How are you going to change it? And if the plan looks good, they can say, okay, no demo delay, go and do your plan. Or if they think something should be changed, or it's a complete demolition and they're opposed to that, they can say it's preferably preserved, and that vote alone imposes demo delay. So it's a much more simplified process. It involves the public upfront. Caitlin put together some numbers for us for the past 12 months. The fact is that demo delay is actually pretty rare. What happens in most of these meetings is they actually do what I just described. In fact, it's just not, it's not explained that way in the ordinance. They'll impose the delay, they'll look at the plans, and they lift the delay. So there's a delay imposed and lifted on the same night. So it's not as scary. People who have never been through the process look at it and say, this is, this is horrible, like someone's gonna bang a hammer on a desk and I'm not gonna be able to do anything for 12 months. But that's not really how it works. So we're trying to make that clear. So I think that's a big, improvement to the ordinance. Planning office worked hard on it. So that,
You
I'm
really
sorry.
believe that going from 3 month to 3 year delay to a 2 year delay is gonna stop all of those houses being converted in Ward 5? I mean,
Can I-
see
can I
dozens of
interject
those being done.
On that real quick, and I'd love to hear your answer on that, but I think it's actually good that that it's dropped down. I was looking into it a little bit, I couldn't find any communities that get up to 3 years.
Right. We would've-
So it would have been, we would have been basically reaching new territory, and I'm wondering if it would have been legally defensible, it could have been considered a taking. And I'm not, our attorney's gone now, but I wondered what she would have said about that. So I think 24 months is, and I think 24 months is the longest in the state, if I'm not mistaken.
It might be, we had a counselor who tried to do sort of survey of Essex County,
Yeah.
not Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Where 18 months was the longest that she found. Sort of my argument to that is, and I think 36 months was pushing it, but start high,
Yeah, totally good. Do what the developers do, right?
Right.
Negotiate down.
The Newburyport, if 24 months is sort of out there and progressive or leading something, that's the role Newburyport has played.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, I'm not
It's been-
denying that, yeah.
We have the first urban renewal that saved the downtown rather than raise it. So with sort of like, remember Newburyport, you have leadership in this area. So I hope that with the strong support of the historical commission, maybe the Affordable Housing Trust, that we can get the 24 months. And I really think it's important that we get the streamlining of the language done, because it's going to be much easier for everyone to understand.
Most historical commissions have the 50-year, but I mean, that's just what I've always heard. But I mean, obviously, we're not going there anymore, but.
It is,
I thought that was
and
standard.
I've tried to point out, there are cities where mostly what they're preserving are the types of houses we're talking about post-war, or bungalows, or, in Salt Lake City, they have, they do it through LHDs, but they have multiple LHDs of specifically, neighborhoods of small homes, because that was, so, and they're, later homes. Well, from the 1940s through the 1960s, but mid-century modern neighborhoods. And that's the federal and state standard for historic is 50 years.
Yeah.
But it would have really been difficult to fight that fight without the wards
Certainly,
that have those buildings, most of those buildings.
So has that new version of the ordinance been released?
It has been, it's been sent, and that's what both Caitlin and I were looking to see if it had been updated, so that we could just click on a button and it comes up.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'd be curious to look at that, that'd be great.
yeah. And then as soon as, the other one, 218, as soon as those amendments are finished and it's sent to, Ben Harmon, who's the chair of, planning and development, then we should have that too.
Right.
But it should be, I don't know if you have time on April 15th, but all three of these two and the one we just talked about, the far 25-foot height one, will all be at the planning board on April 15th.
I should be available, I'll try to show up. I think, as far as like formal affordable housing trust support, because I mean, this is in our wheelhouse and certainly, like, you know, you had suggested, I think. Having a voice here could be useful or helpful or meaningful. But my thinking was, and it's already starting to happen, there was gonna be, I always felt like there was gonna be a lot of iterations of these, and we were gonna, so I was kind of waiting for more of the fully baked proposal before we sort of debated internally.
Oh, I see,
You know,
yeah,
so I can understand, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I understand it's also useful to be part of like a larger discussion or
Yeah.
showing up to a meeting and voicing your
Yeah.
support or not.
well, I mean, you never know, that's the thing.
Yeah, I know,
When you never know, is no one going to show up to these meetings or, you know,
Yeah.
but it just happened that we had a good debate because we had the historic preservation people there and we had the realtors and developers there, and so it was a long meeting, there was a lot of public comment. But I think that if this had survived, you know, then it definitely would have been helpful at the next meeting for the Affordable Housing Trust to weigh in.
Yeah.
So,
What time's the meeting?
So,
seven, yeah, and it's here, it's downstairs.
So do you feel, I mean, I think of the historical people in town being more focused on, the south end, but my question is, do you feel like the historic preservation advocates are concerned with other areas of the city? So you
Yes.
feel like
Yes.
they're coming, they will be coming and supporting this and.
Well, the new demolition, yes,
Yeah.
yes, they will be, just for the increase in,
Great,
in the delay. And they were there for the 50 years.
that's great, because they're a powerful voice in the city.
Yeah, so, so I'm sorry we had to give up on that so soon. And there have been cases where, when I was on the Preservation Trust, we would come to, cases like, there was one on Highland, in 2019, if I remember, where they wanted to mansionize a house on Highland. And we were there and to, you know, well, it wasn't a federalist, and we're not just concerned, we're not concerned about the big fancy buildings, although a lot of people think that's all that preservation should be concerned about. We're concerned about the, you know, the historical built environment in Newburyport. Yeah. So this isn't on the agenda, so I don't know if I can talk about it, but.
one sec, so, we have other updates from the Affordable Housing Trust co-chair of the planning department, so if we wanna allow Stephanie to
Sure.
opine on something else. go ahead.
Okay, so this is about rentals, apartment buildings, and so I'm working on something again at Andy's request. I haven't gotten started on it yet because these things have come first. I think that they'll do, you know, if we can get through some of these things, they'll do more good. But there's still the issue of what happens when we do condo conversions. So I did listen to I listened to the recording of Christine Mador was here talking about what Salem went through. I don't believe that would be helpful for us to go through something like that, and I don't think we have the resources or would have the resources we talked about for enforcement. I mean, we don't have the resources to enforce our short-term rental ordinance. So I sort of said, well, okay, what else can we do? So Andy suggested that, and I talked to Ben Harmon about this, that we informally, and we can do this, we can informally sit together and say, what else could we do and what questions do we have for Jill Brennan? What questions do we have for Caitlin? What questions do we have for the city solicitor? If there's something we can do. So it's that kind of, think tank, and I don't know, I mean, you guys are also busy, but at some point, maybe in May, I can put together sort of, what we know already, and I think that, some of the people who have been criticizing, Newburyport for not protecting all of its 79 apartment buildings. The fact is that most of those units are protected already. So, you have to really define what is it that we're protecting. And I believe most of it's in Ward 2. And we're never going to stop it, but it would be nice to have something that allows it to be, for the tenants to be treated more fairly.
So when you say they're protected already, what do you mean?
Because they are, they're deed restricted. They're deed restricted units.
Not
So,
being able to be converted to condos or,
well, not to be able to be converted to anything but affordable rentals, yeah.
oh, so when you said the 79 apartments, you meant the
They
affordable
include
housing
some-
apartment.
Right, so the gentleman who came up with this list, and he was like really like. About it, it included things like the Menco projects and Hillside and, things that are already on the Affordable Housing Trust list of,
The affordable housing inventory of the
yes.
city,
yeah,
they're deed restricted.
right,
Yeah.
so,
But I mean, there are multifamily properties that have no income restrictions, for sure.
yes.
I think that's the issue. But what you're saying, it's not 79 buildings, it's way less than that.
Right.
Too bad.
Right. And, Salem, our condo conversion ordinance currently is more than 4 units, right? So we don't try to do what Salem did, which they said we're gonna do 4 units.
Well, Salem was particularly concerned with 2 families, I think. Or
Right.
2 and 3s.
So, yeah,
That
so
was
they
much
got,
of their inventory.
I guess that's why they had to do something home rule, because
Right.
the state law doesn't even cover that. So, and that's what they really wanted to do. I don't think we would get away with that here. Although we do have buildings like that. But most of, in the south end, we still have a lot of what were apartment buildings. They're just condos now.
Right.
So we still have the smaller units, but they're
Right.
just not available for renting.
But all the people that lived there are now gone from the city,
Yes,
they're going.
they're not.
On 3 State Street, perfect example.
Yeah.
14 units to 6.
Right.
For 2.5 million each.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, it is, the thing is, so we can't stop condo conversions. I think that I think the idea that I am most interested in, if it's possible, is to have a 1-year moratorium. So that it's not just, the seller, there's that, loophole we have now in the current law, where if you sell the building to someone new, the new owner doesn't have any of the obligations of the condo conversion law. So that's how that's how 105 State Street happened. So if there was some kind of, you could say, no matter what, whoever owns it, there has to be 1 year before it can be converted into anything. Whether
Make
it's
sure that the
condos or,
tenants are properly
Right,
notified of their
and-
rights.
right, and give them, even if they're at will, that was the other thing with 105, everyone was at will. But most apartments like that are going to be at will, so they need some other protection. And so I guess that's what I was thinking could be a focus, is just, that. I don't think we can, it's just, there aren't that many left. The biggest one I know of is on Fruit Street, and that's Joni Puring. I don't know, when she will drop on that building.
How many units is that, do you know?
I'm not sure, actually, I don't know. Do you know how many
Not here, I think I have it.
you have?
Office,
Yeah,
The brick building?
Must be.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's 4.
Oh, it's a
looks
large
much bigger
building,
than
it's
that.
very large.
Yeah,
I used to live next door to it, it was old, it was way back when,
yeah.
they might have changed it.
It's very, if you're at the street frontage, it goes way back
Yeah.
like that.
Do you know how many there are?
Well, I think it's 3 stories high.
Right,
And I think it's probably like 6 windows back. I don't know how many windows per room and what the inside, I don't know the interior.
okay. I know someone who lives there, I should just ask him.
Do they live in that building?
Just the meters on the outside.
What is
That's-
the,
yeah.
Oh, there you go.
what is the address?
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
If you go to
It's
the
on
corner of
Street.
Fruit
It's
and
seven, yeah,
Temple, it's the 3rd house in
It's
from,
Good Street,
7th Fruit Street.
yeah, I used to live at 9.
do you know how many units it is?
I don't,
Okay.
that, but
It'll
I'll,
take me a few minutes to figure it out.
Okay.
So
okay.
this is probably not worth doing it right now.
So is that all affordable housing or
No,
Or-
none of it,
all.
Yeah.
it's just a,
it's all rental apartment? It's like rooming?
It's like little a affordable housing, right? I mean, I
Right.
think that, you know, if it's older housing stock that. You know, it's been
Yeah.
around for a while and maybe the fixtures in there haven't been updated.
Yeah,
You kind of
that's good.
count on the, and it's not managed in the way like
yeah,
a Minko property is, for instance, where they're like, you know. So you kind of figure to yourself, you can rent reasonably
yeah, it's
affordably in
legacy,
comparison.
legacy rent.
That's the inventory we're losing and have already lost, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
That would be a great building for the city to.
Well, yeah, that would be a
Shepherd
great
to affordable
opportunity
housing.
for a nonprofit to get site control on.
Which one's that?
That
The one
building-
we're talking
building
about.
on Fruit
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
The
But you
building
have to
next
be
door.
very nimble and you need to have money for a deposit to get it off the market.
Well, typically people that own those types of buildings, you know, they're legacy property owners, they've, maybe somebody, you know, family owns it, it's in a trust, you know, and by the time they wanna
Right.
sell it, they wanna, you know, they wanna make a lot of money. You
Well,
know,
the
they're-
kids do.
The kids
I
do,
think
yeah.
that, I think, you know, ideally, if we had this, this rich nonprofit, would be to make an offer to Joni, but while it's, they still
Still
could,
qualify.
and the offer would be sort of this, this will be rehabbed historically, because that is still her big concern, that building, someone will do something to it. She's a big historic preservationist. So she's really interested in the historic preservation part.
Well, it's really hard to get a nonprofit to, I mean, it gets really complicated when it's occupied. You know, because if they're working with any kind of state funding, then you need to have, you know, people need to be income qualified and I could go on and on and on. I mean, it's an important undertaking, but it's really complicated. But you see nonprofits trying to do it, especially in Boston, and, you know, it can be done, it's just really, really hard.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why part of when Walt was here, you know, I mean, it's just really hard to step in and take control over the situation like he was talking about.
The biggest danger is the house next door, number 9. It's got a backyard that has 2 acres of land in it, as it goes out and behind 7, and it goes to the right of the other units. It's got an enormous amount of vacant land back there. So that would be a good move. But,
And then the building 2 down from
yeah,
the brick building is going through a major overhaul right now.
correct. And those are
And that's being created as a 2-family.
two-family, right?
Yes.
And those
They're putting
are,
a lot of money into
those
that.
are about, is it 2.75 million each?
I don't know the number.
Yeah,
offhand.
it's the same builder as 105. Yeah, State Street, Lake Wilcox.
Oh,
Thanks for that update,
So I, you know, I can't do it now, but I think it would be a good discussion for us to have again, to see if there's anything we could do. So maybe in May, if you guys are,
Yep.
you guys have some time.
that'd be great, if you wanna go through Caitlin, or we can-
Yeah.
or come to us directly,
Yeah.
whatever works, we can work something out. That'd be
All
great.
right. Well, thank you for inviting
Yeah,
us
of
to
course.
make these updates, and you'll get the most up-to-date versions of these. Yeah.
Great,
Thank you
thanks
so
so much,
much.
Stephanie, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, other updates from us as chairs or planning department? Do you wanna go first, Mel, do you have anything? Michelle?
Well, I wanted to mention that, Caitlin suggested that we have a small discussion with the Habitat around the pilot program.
Yeah.
For homeowner rehab, repair, emergency room, I don't know what to call it. My brain is.
Yeah, they're bringing in a new program coordinator, so.
Right.
Will they come on board? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, I'm looking forward to that because I just feel like I want to be able to ask some more questions to someone who will actually be implementing the program. And then finalize the contract. I mean, I'm not really, there's nothing too, significant that I'm concerned about. I just feel like I haven't had a chance to, make the connection with
Yeah, that's fair.
whoever's gonna be.
And just as an aside on that, I know we've had some thoughts on maybe moving to conservative with our interpretation of how to utilize CPC. And potentially use that as a funding mechanism, but I can tell you right now. We've done some soul searching in North Andover, we're not even gonna use it for CPC for that program, so I don't, I'm seeing less of an opportunity to use CPC for it, unfortunately, so I don't know if there's other. Funding mechanisms out there that we can think about to make it a sustainable program, but just throwing it out there.
One of the things we could be thinking about is, all of the turnover of all of these units into the what's it called, this one night stands, all apartments.
Short-term rentals?
Short-term rentals, right, all of those. Several years ago, I tried to get city council to tax them, so that the money could come to the Affordable Housing Trust that we could use to buy like 7 Fruit Street or something like that, and so we could have a source of revenue besides the CDC funds. So they didn't quite get it, now we've got a completely different city council. And I think they're more receptive to doing something to help us do something good. And that's just, that doesn't come out of the city budget, it's the people that are renting it. Every time my wife and I go someplace and we rent one, is a double tax, one for the state, one for the city, and one for the affordable housing. We did in Washington DC. It's simple, it was 9% down there, affordable housing charge, but it's only $18.
Yeah.
But if you do it by the number of units in the city, times the renting rates, it brings about $500,000 into our bucket every year. That's a lot of money.
That would be the case, that would be a lot of.
They do it in P-town.
You have to do it. That's correct.
Okay, any other updates from planning board?
I had,
Yeah, we'll come to you, but I know you, yeah.
Just that, I'm gonna be submitting the CPC recommendations, city council next week. And the CPC voted to recommend fully the 300,000 request. And so, when it comes time for planning and development to discuss, one of you may want to attend in case there's questions, and I can see that being early May.
Okay, just keep us posted.
So is that the meeting that is most important?
Budget and finance,
Pardon?
budget and finance,
yeah, budget finance.
Not planning.
not planning.
Okay,
Yeah.
so not planning the budget and finance, is the most important one for us to speak, okay.
Say 450.
300,000,
300.
300,000.
And that will be in May, you think?
I believe so.
Okay.
What is that going to? 300K?
So it would be to refill our,
Oh, okay, the coffer.
yeah, but like specifically like the, rental assistance program.
Oh, great.
Down
Yeah.
payment assistance.
Yeah.
We're okay with down payment
We're
for
okay with
now,
down
but it's rental assistance and to refill our coffers from our commitment to the Brown School.
That's great.
And also to do potentially some collaboration with the Regional Planning Commission.
That's right, yeah.
Around tenant rights and around, if there's another significant condo conversion situation, that we would be prepared with some materials to share and also maybe to do the housing report card, like looking at our housing production plan, how have things maybe shifted, evolved, whatever, since that time, and maybe highlighting on some of the great things that are going on, being sponsored by the city council and how it relates to affordability.
And because it's CPC fund, there's certain projects that are eligible to be funded through CPC and certain things that are not. So we were talking about the critical home repair program, which would not be an eligible program to fund the CPC money,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
So just something for us to keep in mind.
yeah, that's the Habitat Critical Home Repair
Correct.
Aging Replacement.
Yeah.
I think that when CPA was established, they didn't want to. So many municipalities, that's how they would want to spend their money for housing, would be helping seniors fix up their houses rather than creating new units that are really deed restricted affordable. So that's why it's not eligible, because it would have been a huge sucking sound, right?
Right.
Like, that's the only thing that would ever be done around housing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, it would be great, and it seems kind of unfair, but I can understand the rationale behind it. So I think that's why it is the way it is.
Mhm.
Okay, anyone else from the department?
No, just also I would note the staff report, we may wanna think about like the 2026 strategic plan. A couple years ago, we did have one, we haven't updated it or talked about it, there's a lot going on here, do we wanna,
Yeah,
talk about that, kind of like goals.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and
We're supposed to update it periodically, and we've sort of fallen flat on that.
All right, maybe we can put that on the agenda next time.
Yeah,
Mission, kind of like what we are thinking of doing.
Yeah,
right,
next
right.
year.
And you had also mentioned that the Affordable Housing Trust in Amesbury wants to talk to us.
Yeah.
That's not
Oh.
It's
waiting.
like a phone call, it's what to chat, so I don't know if someone wants.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, that's been hanging out there for a while,
Yeah.
we've been leaving them out there to dry, so, yeah, how do you wanna handle that? I don't know, we can talk afterwards
Yeah.
about that, I don't think we have to worry.
But you think it's just a phone call?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, Bob, you wanted to raise a couple things?
yeah, was also put on this,
Senior Affordable Housing Task Force.
yeah, the task force, and I've been working with the assessor and Eileen Harch. Brady, whatever. And we've come up with 3 different locations on Parker Street that have potential to be put in this type of housing, which is lower density up to 1,000 square feet. And that approach,
Kind of like what's his name, David Hall kind of did that. a little bit.
yes, that's a good analogy. So I've talked to, I've sent emails, and we've also got contacted with Mark Ritchie, because at the back of his building where that windmill used to be, there's about 5.5 acres back there. That we could put that type of project, it's right on the rail trail, it's ideally located. So that, we haven't had that
So
physically.
you reached out to Mark,
Reach out to Mark,
did he respond?
he hasn't responded yet, he's been out of town.
Okay,
We also responded to the building that's right across the street from that, which is the construction company. They have a 3.5 acre lot. And I asked them if they would be interested in doing a building like the one down the street, one Boston, two Boston, right?
Yeah.
They said absolutely. And they would.
he said absolutely.
Yes, they would like to be part of the discussion, because they would build it, they're builders.
Okay,
And they were the ones that came within $100,000 of that building bidding on Low Street for the new gymnasium. So there were a bunch of very skilled people that got together, put this company together a couple of years ago, and they're very good at it. So they would be part of, and they could even do it. And I said it is, 30% and 60% affordable, and they said that, and in a mix of market rate, they absolutely agree.
and not to interrupt, but isn't that area right there, part of the MBTA communities?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
all fits.
yeah, so they could technically do it by right.
Yeah, yeah.
Depending on what the. plan
And the
is.
same thing, right, goes to the zoning change, and that's Parker Street and Graff Road, and the guy in the corner, what's his last name? Not Zoe, but anyway, I talked to him, and great, he owns 3 lots there. And he would like to be part of a discussion to put in mixed use of affordableness, the lower income levels, the higher income levels. He'd love to be part of that. And one of his problems is the lot next door has, as you know, the industrial park does not have any drainage systems. It's swales.
Yeah.
So I went to Newburyport and I said, they got a big swale that runs right down through the middle of those two lots. Could we take and cap it right here and put a 4-foot or a 5-foot drainage pipe in all the way to the end of the lot? He said, absolutely. And then it's buildable.
Well, so that, so there's,
There's about 5-6 acres in there.
so if there's a tangible thing that could make it a buildable lot from a
Yeah.
drainage perspective, there's programs that the state runs.
Yeah.
There's something literally called site readiness, that's the name of the program.
Okay,
And through mass development. And actually, it might be, you might have to apply through what's called a one-stop program.
Yeah.
Which is like a grant program that comes up once a year every summer.
Yeah.
And it's like a basket of grants, like economic development and infrastructure related grants.
Yeah.
And site readiness is within that block, I believe, of grants. And so private landowners can apply.
Yeah.
With city backing to
get this site.
basically get a grant to do a project.
Yeah.
And, you know, so like if it was drainage, if it was getting sewer connected, if it was building, a road to access the property, or something like that,
Yeah.
anything that would get the site buildable,
That's good.
it could do that. So if that was something that they want to look at, if there's something cost prohibitive right now, or that, you know, they don't want to look at that.
Well, he was very positive. I talked with him for almost an hour the other day.
Okay.
And,
He had a proposal a few years back to build the, Newburyport Brewing over there.
why he likes this idea is because he has that house that's there.
Yeah.
It's been converted to a historical structure. He wants to keep it. And he wants to convert it into a.
Does someone live in there?
No, that's his office.
Oh, okay.
And he's got a guy in there doing different things for him, but that. The site plan for that lot is. Looks like this. And a lot of either side of it also, so it's a lot of land.
Yeah.
And
How many acres?
this one's 3.5, that's. 2 and 2. 5, 6, 7, 8 acres roughly.
Yeah.
So it would be a good sized parcel. And if we did a lower density out there, it would, instead of putting up big buildings, it would be very favorable to him. So he could mix. Putting in, taking part of this land and breaking it up and putting in apartment buildings. And an affordable housing developer, a bigger one.
Yeah.
Could do all of these other units. And he thought that made sense, and the people on the commission that I'm on think it makes sense too.
Sure.
And the other thing is the
Now, you're on the Senior Affordable Housing Task Force, or Senior Affordable Task Force, so my question
Yeah.
is, was there conversation about doing an age restricted sort of thing?
age restricted.
Yeah, making it
Yeah,
so that
it's
it's,
55.
Yeah.
We could make a mix of it. Get
Okay.
3 sites, let's say 2 of them say.
I mean, if you make it affordable units anyway, then it's like affordable to everyone, including seniors, but I'm just
Correct.
wondering if you were targeting senior.
No, I'm not right now, because the Brown School is gonna take 30 of them. That's
Yeah, true.
seniors. And so it can be a mix, and it doesn't matter to me, it's up to what the developer figures out they wanna do. I have not contacted any developers. Because we need to talk to them.
I think it would be better not to have it age restricted, the type of housing you're talking about.
Say it again.
I think it would be better not to have it age restricted, the type of housing you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Cause I think smaller scale housing like that's good as like entry level housing for
That's what-
first time home buyers.
I mean, it could be empty nesters, but
yes, or
I
empty
think
nesters
not
on
to have
downside.
it be
Well,
restricted.
my wife said if we had a nice little 1,000 square foot unit out there, a 2-bedroom. With a small garage with 1 car, I would love to transfer my $1.5 million cape to go out there. And that's the problem. Is all these capes, you know, they're all over the place. They're Ward 5 and 6 is filled with them. And these people can sell them and go someplace else.
But you're doing this on behalf of the Senior Affordability Task Force, right? Not the Housing Trust.
correct.
But you're just keeping us posted on.
Yeah, you guys should, because you're gonna be, it's gonna flip over real quick.
Yeah.
As soon as we identify a location, somebody wants to do it in affordable housing. Okay, come on to the trust.
Great.
They'll have to hire Lisa or somebody else. She's the one doing all of them. And it can get done. Because Mark Ritchie's got a very philanthropical brain, and he got rid of that windmill. And that took that whole piece of property and made it right on the rail.
Yeah.
And these others are so close to the rail trail that it's not offensive.
Is that property, does it have street frontage or does it need a road built to it to get to it?
It's got a parking lot with a driveway right through it, to the very end where the gym is. So that everybody gets down and parks down there. So it's got a driveway right through it, on two of them.
I'm not pouring cold water on that at all, I'm just throwing out the other thought, so there's that's one thing that potentially, and I know there's a parking lot, but I don't know from a legal perspective if that counts as frontage really. They might have to do something else, but anyway.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is whether it could be compatible with like the other uses there, so like. You have the brewery right there, you know, they have parties, they have a lot of people, like, are people gonna be happy? Now, granted. These houses, if they got built there, would be coming after the brewery's been there, so like, people would probably understand they were. Oh, I love the brewery, I'm all about it, I'm all about it, I'm just, all I'm saying is. Does someone wanna live like literally like, look out the window and boom, there's like a party going on all the time,
That's
which is
Green
fine.
Island, and that's fine.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
65, should love to.
Okay, that's fine. That's so,
So,
I'm just asking the question.
And then there's another lot that I talked about. It's up on Story Avenue, which is the parking right lot.
That's your favorite site.
That's because it's 10 acres.
Yeah, I think that just needs to be like,
State land.
well, it's mass DOT. It's mass highway. Is it federal? No, I don't think
Oh,
so.
yes.
Oh, I thought it was mass highway.
No, I was corrected. They said, no, the federal government has to give you that right to do that. And I said, fine, we can tie all kinds of site readiness and stuff like that with that project, but it's got. The opportunity to do a bigger project there. The hook is. They say. There's not enough water. I said, well, how can you have water for that project and not that project?
Who is they that says there's not enough water?
Who the hell was it, the water commission?
The city says there's not enough water?
Yeah.
Somebody who's on the water commission
Yeah.
or the city water treatment plant?
It's not the water treatment plant,
Yeah.
no, that's sewage.
Well, no, but there's the people who operate the water system for the city, and then there's the commissioners who have opinions about it.
Right, and they got a brand new chairman of that board, which is,
Like, we're the Affordable Housing Trust, but then there's the planning department.
right, I know that. So. To solve the water,
Well, anyway, so I would say, yeah, I like that site for a number of things.
sure, and,
I think there should be a hotel there.
Oh, I agree.
Like a crappy scale hotel, like a Hampton Inn or something. you know?
it's all right, you can do that.
Well, no, because that's what you have out on highway.
I know. But you can't see.
And then there should be like a mix of uses there. There should definitely be a mix of uses.
Yeah.
Including that.
Do a complete mix of uses in there, and you put, 2 and 3 story buildings in, you don't have to put 6 and 8. Now, the water. Can be solved. By my neighbor on. Summit Place, put in an artesian well.
Sure.
Okay, he went down 220 feet. And he's got 80 PSI water pressure coming out of it.
Wow.
And it is the cleanest and purest water you have ever smelled or took a look at. So if it's an artesian well right over there, in the city. So we could put 2 artesian wells in there, there's your water, and they put a brand new pump station on Low Street, they could just dump it into the sewer system. So that would solve that development problem. But that's just a aside. It's, you can't put new water out there, okay, fine. So if they don't want to put water, we have the rights to put in artesian wells. Correct?
It's good to me.
Yeah, it is, yeah, well, they gave Kelly the rights because. The city doesn't touch artesian water,
Hmm.
not at all.
All right, those are good updates. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.
I like all the legwork.
Bob is our gopher. He gets out there and
I love
finds
it.
all these things.
It's his passion, clearly.
All right, so next meeting date, what are we looking at here?
May seventh, it's free on the city calendar.
May seventh. Thursday, May seventh. I will not be available for that day, but I'm happy if everybody else is available. for-
No, we can't.
Oh, okay.
It's another day,
I'm sorry about that.
next week. Is the 14th okay for you?
I'm good on the 14th as of now.
Andy, it's fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, when?
The 14th.
That's a Thursday.
May.
May 14th, yeah.
That date looks like there's a historical commission meeting here, it's also budget and finance committee, so that might be where they're gonna talk about CPC recommendations.
Okay. Do we always do Thursdays, by the way?
We started doing them because Wednesday I'm usually in Boston,
Oh,
but,
right.
Yeah.
you know, what'd you say?
We were thinking of you.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't know if Tuesdays are ever possible for anybody.
Sure.
Tuesdays are doable.
The 6th.
It's my late.
The 5th of the
So,
12th.
but yeah.
Or work.
Yeah.
So it's not because Amy and I have the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
So it's a little tricky, but,
Well, I mean,
are we looking for May, or do we definitely need a May meeting?
Is the zoning board of appeals once a month?
Twice a month?
Okay, is it one on the 5th and the 12th?
Or what about the 21st? May 21st,
Okay,
it works for me.
What day?
May
21st.
21st,
That's a
Thursday.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
It's gonna be warm. Have the AC on,
Don't jinx it.
6 p.m., is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
May 21st.
The amount of knowledge you guys all have in your brains is all of you. There's so much history, there's so much background, there's so many ordinances and, yeah, you're all very valuable to this. If new people had to come in and learn it from scratch, it would be,
Yeah,
It's not rocket science, it's just
One
rent
other subject
retention,
that I
you know,
wanted to
learning
talk
over
about.
the years.
you know, it's like all the knowledge you pick up along the way from your
Yeah.
experience, yeah.
City was given safe harbor status.
Yes, I believe so.
However, one of the comments in the article, I'm not an attorney, but it said.
It's the
And
40B.
to ensure that a
Safe harbor.
meaningful percentage of new units are affordable to low and moderate income
Yeah.
households, according to city officials. None of the new buildings, other than the Brown School that are being built, are for low and moderate income people.
well, the Kmart project will count
I know,
100% of those units.
but it doesn't matter,
It's
doesn't
a
matter.
rental.
That said, it's done that way because they're providing moderate and low income. And that unit, one Boston Way, two Boston Way, the Route 1 buildings that Minko's gonna be putting up, the Kmart building, none of those have anybody. Unless you make it over $100,000 a year, which is $50.
Okay, so what's your point?
So I-
What's your point?
my point is, the city gave a certification. If anybody wants to object to it and stick with 40Bs, it's not a, I don't think there's a judge in the world that wouldn't say you're dead right.
So you're saying that safe harbor is a falsehood?
Of course it is.
Okay, well, I think we understand.
Yeah, no, I knew that from the get-go because.
I know that.
Because it's, you're allowing 100% of the,
Yeah,
even
that's-
if there was 30% AMI in the Kmart building. And there's 70 units in there, whatever, that are 30% AMI, that'd be great, we'd be doing cartwheels around town, but. I've
But,
got 100 something units in there that wouldn't have been,
and
so,
they're $2,500 a month for one bedroom.
but anyway. All right, sorry guys, one more thing I forgot, I
Sorry.
glazed over the fact that we have minutes, we have several sets of minutes. Approval of minutes from 10/21, 10/29, 12/4, all 2025, and 1/28, 2026.
The last time we went.
So I know like, Barb was here for some of these meetings at least,
Mhm.
but I know you weren't officially sworn in yet, but I think you were listening in on these meetings, so I'm. How do we do this?
Mhm.
We talked
I
about
make
this
a
last
motion to
time,
leave the
that
list.
if they've gone on so long, I think the people in the room can vote on them.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just, one more,
But-
before we do this, can I ask one more quick question? Do you guys post draft minutes?
Yep.
Okay, so they're up there.
they're up there, yeah,
In draft
so
form.
if you wanna wait until the right people are in the room,
No, I
that's
mean-
fine, I mean, it's up to you.
Oh,
The only difference is that it was a draft.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I'm comfortable, voting on all this, and, you know, they're up there and we haven't heard anybody be like, hey, wait a second, you know, so I think it's, I think we're in good shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll move to approve all minutes presented this evening.
I second
Thank you. All in favor?
it.
Aye.
I,
All right. You can take draft off this now.
so is there one?
All right, motion to adjourn, second, anybody?
I'll second.
All right,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's what we-
Yeah, they did great.
7:55.
Yeah.
How's everything going?
Even Lisa Mead was complaining about it.
I'm
It's
sorry.
just a huge problem. It's a statewide.
What, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah.
Such.